A Ukrainian military intelligence operation was behind the detonations of goggles for first-person view drones used by Russian soldiers, a HUR source told the Kyiv Independent. The news comes after Russian pro-war Telegram channels reported a series of explosions of FPV goggles while they were being used by Russian drone operators. According to the source, HUR bought a large batch of FPV goggles for the operation and rigged them with explosives and a detonation mechanism. Russian volunteers subsequently donated the goggles to Russian drone units in coordination with the agency, according to the source. Today, the horrors of war are literally happening right before the eyes of Russian FPV pilots. This is a well-deserved punishment for the war crimes that the Russian occupiers commit against Ukraine every day, the HUR source said. Throughout Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine and Russia have heavily invested in drone technology, revolutionizing warfare. Various aerial, naval, and ground drones have been developed and often successfully used for reconnaissance, combat, and other tasks by Ukrainian troops. FPV drones are cheap to manufacture and can be precisely flown into targets, allowing their users to destroy much more expensive military equipment. The operation of the Ukrainian intelligence is very similar to the Israeli Mosad operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah, only on a much smaller scale. U.S. President Donald Trump said on February 19 that he aims to resurrect talks on the agreement for Ukraine's natural resources. CNN reported shortly after the U.S. president accused his Ukrainian counterpart of being a dictator. "I think I'm gonna resurrect that deal. We'll see what happens, but I'm gonna resurrect it, or things are gonna not make him, President Volodymyr Zelensky, too happy. And look, it's time for elections," Trump said, without elaborating on the consequences for Ukraine and its president if the deal is not signed. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent passed Zelensky a draft of the Ukraine-U.S. Natural Resources Agreement during his visit to Kyiv last week. Ukraine's leader said Kyiv is not ready to sign the document as it did not include any security guarantees. "There are no security guarantees in the proposed agreement," Zelensky said during the Munich Security Conference on February 15, adding that signing the memorandum was not in our interest today, but did not rule out the possibility of an eventual agreement with the U.S. Trump blamed Ukraine for treating Bessent rather rudely when he arrived in Kyiv to pen the memorandum. They told him no, and Zelensky was sleeping and unavailable to meet him, the U.S. president claimed. Photos released by the presidential office clearly show Zelensky meeting Bessent during the latter's visit to Kyiv. Trump has recently made a number of false and misleading statements about Zelensky and Ukraine. He went there to get a document signed, and when he got there, he came back empty. They wouldn't sign the document. Trump did not specify what the terms of the deals could be and how Ukraine could benefit from them. The U.S. is reportedly looking to obtain an interest in 50% of Ukraine's natural resources through a joint investment fund as payback for its support for Kyiv, according to a leaked version of the deal passed along to Zelensky by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov are war criminals and liars. They're the ones who started this war and cannot be trusted. If Donald Trump thinks he can make some deal that isn't backed by security guarantees and power, he's lying to us or himself.
Well, if we have Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov agreeing with Donald Trump or saying that he understands them, there's a couple of things going on there. Number one, Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov are war criminals, they're liars, and they are the ones that started this war. And they are never to be trusted. We've known Putin for a long time. He's been on the scene for decades. We know that he lies. We know that he's aggressive. We know that he can never be trusted, and he breaks promises over and over and over again. So if Donald Trump thinks that he can placate them, that he can try to make some deal that it actually isn't backed by security guarantees and power, he is lying to himself.
Moscow is worried about recent discussions by NATO countries about a potential deployment of peacekeepers in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said. The pro-Kremlin news agency Interfax reported on February. Peskov made the statement in reaction to a recent Telegraph story saying that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer plans to propose to US President Donald Trump the deployment of up to 30,000 European troops to monitor a potential ceasefire deal in Ukraine. We are, of course, following all these reports most closely. This is a cause for concern because the discussion is about sending NATO military contingents to Ukraine, Peskov said at a press briefing. The Kremlin spokesperson reiterated earlier statements by the Russian Foreign Ministry that a deployment of NATO troops on Ukrainian soil would be unacceptable for Russia. The peacekeeper deployment has been discussed as a possible security guarantee for Ukraine in case of a ceasefire. Washington has supported the idea, with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that the ceasefire should be backed by capable European and non-European troops, with the exclusion of U.S. soldiers. While France, the UK, and several other countries voiced support for the idea, European countries have yet to reach a consensus on the issue. According to Starmer's plan, European troops would be deployed in Ukrainian cities, ports, and other critical infrastructure such as nuclear power plants far away from the current front lines, The Telegraph wrote. Starmer reportedly also plans to urge Trump to keep U.S. fighter jets and missiles in NATO countries in Eastern Europe ready to respond to any future Russian aggression. The United Kingdom is prepared to deploy Typhoon fighter jets to police the skies over Ukraine to help secure peace. The Times reported on this. According to the publication, British ministers are currently discussing such a scenario of support for Ukraine as an alternative to the significant deployment of peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. The mission could be similar to the one currently being conducted in the Baltic states, which involves providing escorts for Russian aircraft and responding round the clock to air threats. Anonymous government sources told The Times that despite the discussions, the mission required a significant number of aircraft and air defense systems. A dozen or so Typhoon fighter jets could be on alert around the clock to fight off Russian air attacks, along with UK and European peacekeeping forces in Ukraine. At the same time, another source from the Royal Air Force told the publication that such a mission is very likely, but discussions are still at an early stage, and it is unknown what decision will be made. If it is decided to allocate aircraft for this mission, the Typhoon fighter jets will be deployed at Polish air bases in the border areas from where they can theoretically quickly reach the necessary lines to fight off attacks. Prior to Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine, British aircraft had already conducted exercises in the skies over Ukraine. For example, during the international exercise Cossack Mace 2021, which took place on the territory of the 235th Interspecies Training Center for military units, British Typhoons were involved in the air part of the exercise.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.